Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic: FBI/CIA agents of Reddit, what's something that you can tell us without killing us? An ex-company man once told me Get Smart was more accurate than James Bond. I saw a post the other day, can't remember if it was here or on Twitter, about how awful a spy Bond actually is, when you think about it. Falls for damn near every honeypot, tells people his code name constantly. James Bond is the distraction while others do the real sabotage/spy work in the background. Pretty sure being a famous spy is a sign things aren't going well. I watched Daniel Craig Bond films recently, and that's what stood out to me, just how many people, especially terrorists, knew Bond by name and appearance. Doesn't speak well for the 00 program. We are all told never to use sites like this, and social media in general is pretty much a no-go. I'm telling. You'll kill us all. If you go through the FBI interview process, it takes a while. Chances are you're going to have to spend some time working on crimes against children, which is really tough and most people don't want to do it. I used to work for ACDN, and part of my job was taking in reports of CP, verifying it and forwarding it onto our FBI contacts. I lasted 6 months, and only because my wife and child would have starved otherwise. That was over a decade ago, still has me fucked up. There are some fucked up people in this world, and they do some pretty fucked up things. In my college years I installed cable for Comcast. Saw some shitty things in people's homes. Called CPS more than a couple times. Edit. CPS as in Child Protective Services. Yeah, I heard a story here on Reddit about how somebody was involved in a case against a predator, and he had to go through every image on his hard drive to flag anything that was child porn. That case drove him out of the industry. I can't even imagine. I read an article once about how the government has people whose job it is to look at disturbing videos/images from the internet and seized hard drives, mainly child porn but also things like executions, to find clues to the location, identity of the people involved, etc. It's an important job, but the burnout rate is astronomical. A lot of them end up with PTSD, addiction issues, and other problems. I worked for the largest web hosting company on a planet at the time, and we had a guy whose job it was to answer these kinds of requests, go into databases for our customers, and give child porn information to the FBI to kick off investigations. He had the hardest job I have ever known. My dad worked for the government, and he told me that any time he had a meaningful interaction with someone who was American, i.e. going over to my friend's house for Lunar New Year, or going on vacation to Canada, he had to report it all, and if he saw anything suspicious. Yep. Went through a clearance upgrade and got asked about a couple of people that I know through friends who I didn't include on my paperwork, and if I knew their background. It's the nature of how they process the contacts you listed. They pretty much know that you aren't going to include people who don't like you and will tell your dirt. So they go to your old house and knock on doors to find people you didn't list on your EQIP/SF-86. I said 182, that's a training form and one I just had to fill out last week, so apparently that number was on my mind, the form you fill out with your life history. They say, do you know Derpy Fox? They ask that person questions like, would you trust Derpy Fox to hold a position of trust? They end with something like, do you know anyone else Derpy Fox was friends with when he/she lived here? They then repeat the process with that person to find the guy who will say something like Derpy Fox. Yeah, I know them, they smoked so much weed in high school I used to get a contact high sitting next to them in bio class. Oh wait, you didn't report that drug use on your SF-182. Clearance denied. The deal is, if you stole a pack of gum when you were 5, this is an exaggeration, it wouldn't be reportable based on the time frame, just report it. As soon as they uncover something you didn't report, your integrity comes into question and you probably won't get that clearance. Source: went into the Marines at age 19 and have worked for the duty in some capacity ever since, 23 years and counting. Yeah, you'd like to know what accounts belong to FBI/CIA agents, wouldn't you? Yes. You are under our watch list, buckaroo. Per second, of course. PLS, don't assassinate me. Worked with a woman who was former NSA. We would always beg her to tell us shit, but she never did. The one thing she did say, though, was that during training they show them a video of a bunch of things they've found out about and stopped. She said she hardly slept for 2 weeks after watching that. I have a relative that retired from the NSA a few years ago. She has talked about a few things in generalities, nothing specific. Among them, you will see things that entirely change your view of the world. People go in there all the time with lofty goals of changing things, and within months those goals are mostly gone. Still, if you want to change things, you work for the agency. If you just want to make money, you work for a contractor. No one cares what contractors have to say. Most people that stay long enough will do a tour in counter-terrorism. Many people transfer out after a few months, and the average stay is 2 years because of the visuals. Those who stick around for a long time often change for the worse, and many struggle with mental illnesses, become alcoholics, get divorced, and generally lead miserable lives with their work their only reason for continuing. Alcoholism in general is rife in the agency. When you cannot speak to anyone outside the agency about your work, it becomes nearly impossible to confide in anyone close to you. Even if you have close work friends or family, you have to be careful what you say because not everyone is read into every program. 2 people can sit next to each other in the same office, working on the same subject for months, and never talk about it with each other even though they are close friends outside the agency. So people turn to the bottle. Her husband worked for a different government agency and also had a top-secret SCI clearance, but she couldn't talk about her work with him, nor could he with her, but his didn't involve the intelligence community. The agency employs psychiatrists who are cleared to be read into almost any program. Going to them, though, is often seen as a mark of shame among other agency employees, so they are not used nearly as often as they should be. She told me most of these things while trying to recruit me. She believed that I should go in knowing what to expect. I eventually declined to apply. That is really a shame that the stigma is still there for psychological help. Are we still too proud to acknowledge that seeing the kind of shit they do has a serious toll on their mental health? Show them a video of a bunch of things they've found out about them, the recruits. Or, like, general things the NSA found out as part of their work. Probably examples of what they prevented, etc. Showing that while much of the work is thankless and boring, it's worth it when you finally catch some dickheads with plutonium or something. I talked with some CIA recruiters towards the end of college and almost applied earnestly after a large group Q&A and then a much smaller one. The thing that stuck out to me was that the guys said most CIA agents are out of shape and have limited combat training with guns or hand-to-hand. They made it clear that it's the military that uses force. If confronted, they were trained to immediately surrender, or to drop their bags and run if possible. Fun fact, the I stands for intelligence, not incredibilidedlipiso. What about incredibilidedli experimeet whose populatio? I'm not sure why this would be surprising. From my contact with the CIA/FBI recruiters, the job is mostly ho/hum. You still get to do cool stuff, but it's also still a 9-to-5 job. Basically it's more office space and less James Bond. What they don't show in the Bond movies is all the paperwork he has to do when he gets back to his office. I once rented out my old farmhouse to a family. They paid the rent every month, and other than mowing the lawn to save their life, I didn't think anything bad about them. That all changed when the D called me to inform me that my renter had been murdered in Mexico and was asking my permission to search the property. Well, it turns out I had unknowingly rented my house to the Mexican mob and they were using it as safe house. It all fell apart for them when 2 of them got caught with a duffel bag full of meth. My renter had to go back to Mexico to visit his mother and was promptly murdered. Let's just say I no longer am a landlord and never will be again. You didn't bother to ask if he worked for a Mexican cartel. Geez, dude. He had a strict don't ask cartel policy. I was an analyst, not an agent/officer. 85% of all classified material is classified because of how it was collected, not because it is juicy/useful. Yes, you boss and co-workers said that shit about you. Yours is the most believable comment in this thread. Yeah. That means 15% of all classified material is juicy. So hit us with the juice, CIA/FBI person. I heard, just 2 days ago, that there is a saying in the government, no one ever got fired for classifying a document. Hence there is huge excess secrecy. Related, I was in the sauna at my gym when this naked old man with extremely long testicles started talking to me. Somehow the conversation ended up on the topic of my new roommate, who happened to be Saudi Arabian. He then proceeded to tell me he worked for the FBI and knew exactly who I was and asked if I would like to make some money, every now and then, for giving him information. I said sure, not because my roommate was sketchy, but because he got drunk one day and pissed on my couch. This was 10 or so years ago and I never really heard from him, but I think my phone was tapped for a short span of time. Upvote for long testicles. I honestly stopped reading after that cause I couldn't stop picturing them. My dad always told me about how he went to school with one of the members of the Saudi royal family. Apparently a couple of dudes played a prank on him which ended up with him being publicly humiliated. Especially Saudi men are extremely proud. I guess he took it really bad. He ended up having to leave the country. Anyways, long story short, a few years down the road the two pranksters both died in freak accidents. One was allegedly killed during an attempted mugging. The other was found dead in the bottom of his pool. Both happened within the span of a couple weeks. Part of the pride has to do with the culture. Many Eastern cultures have an honor/shame system. Many Western cultures have a guilt/innocence system. So for an American, the bad part about something like getting a speeding ticket is that you broke the law and got punished for it. You'd feel guilty. For an Easterner, the bad part about a ticket is that you brought dishonor on your family by being a subpar citizen. You'd feel ashamed. I don't think it's an inferior culture or that their version of pride is the same as Western pride. I'm oversimplifying it here. I grew up in one Western culture and one Eastern one for parts of my life, so if anyone is more familiar with these concepts feel free to correct me or give better examples. Anyway, that public humiliation was a huge offense to the Saudi man's honor. Not in the way that American men have their pride hurt. In a deeper, more complete way. This guy might also have been stuck up in general, but his culture of honor likely made a big difference in the way the humiliation was perceived. All that said, death was nowhere close to an equal act of retaliation. It was not justifiable by any measure. Holy yikes, Batman.